Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Gridiron Review. Alongside Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. Great to have you with us. Bill back from Florida, as Navy had a bye week last week, so you had a chance to escape to Florida. I, in the meantime, have broadcasted since then volleyball, water polo, harness racing, and I went out to a game on Saturday. And little did we know that it would turn out maybe to be the Youth League game of the day between Generals Highway and Severna Park. In the varsity U bracket, got to see the big fella, Mark Wallace, the big offensive lineman for Generals Highway, lead the way. Generals Highway with a fourth quarter touchdown to win it by a score of 16-12. Terrific game between two very good teams. That varsity U playoff is going to be absolutely unbelievable. The top seed is going to guarantee you nothing in that playoff. That bracket's going to be so good. And Bill, this week we're going to feature the 11 and under Panthers and Bucks.
Andover Apaches.
Andover Apaches. And Panthers winning it in the 11U ranks, and another really good low-scoring game and the fun part of these low-scoring games is all it takes is one play, and with some of the highlights that we've been able to acquire from that game just to show some folks some things from that game. As we continue to move on, we saw a big upset in the 8U ranks this week. Just goes to show you, each and every week in youth football, it truly comes down to who blocks, tackles the best. More importantly, whose players show up at all times. It really does make a difference on a Saturday morning. So another great weekend of youth football. I'm telling you, that game I saw between Generals Highway and Severna Park, a lot of those kids going to play in high school next year. Somebody is getting some good players off of both of those teams for next season.
Well, honestly, Generals Highway is in an interesting location because I would imagine some kids who play for Generals Highway would go to Annapolis, or others could go to Old Mill, or perhaps they may go private, as we all know. But that's an interesting, the Generals Highway corridor draws from two school districts, I know for a fact, Annapolis and Old Mill. I was going to ask you, how far into the season are we now? 5 games?
5 or 6 games, depending on what weight class.
So are we about the midway mark, then, Pete?
A little more than midway for most of them, because most teams play the 8 or 9 game schedule. Right. So we're getting closer because now you start to see a lot of the talk about playoffs.
That's what I was just going to say.
Everybody's starting to get hyped up about playoffs. And stuff like that. But, bigger things we've got to do. We've got to make sure that we start to control ourselves a little bit out there at game sites. And, look, let the referees referee the game. That they're there to referee the game. And just like a lot of the kids that are playing youth football for the first time, you may have a referee out there for the first time. Things are going to happen. Mistakes are going to be made. Calls are going to be made. Rules. Here's the most important thing. We have rules that we have to follow. Some people don't like them.
Yeah, right.
But you still got to follow them. Okay?
Right.
So as we get closer and closer to playoff time, don't do anything that's going to ruin your viewing, or if you're a coach, don't do anything that's going to get you thrown out.
He makes a good point. These referees are, in essence, they're not getting paid very much, believe you me. And this is not like a college or NFL referee where you expect a certain level.
It's only a crew of 3 guys trying to watch 22 players.
Right, and then the safety is foremost. So, I mean, again, give the guys a break. They're out there, in essence, volunteering their time. They get paid a bare minimum of money. So they're really doing this for the kids so they can play games. You can't play without the referees. You don't give them a break.
And you know what? Look, if there is a problem with an official, they give you a card every game. If you have an official that has a problem, you turn in his number with what the problem is. The folks at COG be glad to take care of it and address the problem with your commissioner.
Right.
With your commissioner.
I was just going to say that the parents leave the issues with referees and talking to recreation and parks. Leave that issue to the coaches and commissioners. It's their job.
That's what they're there for.
Do not need to get involved with concerns about referees.
Absolutely right about that. Coming up, speaking of playing well, Chesapeake Cougars playing well. Why? We'll correlate why Youth League in high school has led to this resurgence of Chesapeake high school football when we come back on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back. We talked about the correlation between Youth League feeder and your high school program and the success going hand in hand. Well, Rob Elliott, for years, Bill, was part of the Panthers program. Now the Panthers playing a lot of their activities. They've played at Chesapeake High School in the past. And the success of developing players at that level now has led to an increase in players participating at Chesapeake. More importantly, Bill, success. And we're starting to see consistent success, something Chesapeake had never tasted before.
I had a nice conversation with Rob Elliott on Sunday evening, and he said that exact thing. Success begets success. When kids see that football is doing well, they want to be part of it. For many years, perhaps at Chesapeake, when they were going 2-8 or 3-7, kids didn't want to play football. They didn't want to be part of a losing program. There was no pride. There is now pride at Chesapeake. 2 of the last 3 years, they made the playoffs. Chesapeake High had never made the playoffs until 3 seasons ago. And then last season, they made it for the second time in 3 years. That is saying something. That speaks volumes. And this year, they are off to a 5-0 start. First time in school history that Chesapeake High School football is 5-0.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll never forget one of the first games I ever covered for the Capitol years ago. Chesapeake and South River. I'm standing on the sideline. All of a sudden, you start to see these things start to land on the sidelines. And somebody was firing a potato shooter from outside the fence at the South River bench. And really,
this was at Chesapeake.
This was at Chesapeake. Yeah. And that's really kind of what it was back in the day when they were 2-8 and 3-7, 1-9. I mean, there wasn't anything really, to hang their hat on. Outside, as you and I mentioned, outside of when they had Brandon Steinheim, who eventually went on, had a great Division III career at Wesley, outside of when he was there, they really didn't have anything to point to. And now football is such a serious product there, and they have a belief in it. And, the other night, look, Gerald Hurt for Lansdowne was putting on a show. He ran the opening kickoff back, had another 18-yard touchdown run. But right after that opening kickoff, Russell Tongue gets a 70-yard touchdown pass from Jalen Young, and all of a sudden it's on for Chesapeake. And, boy, they are playing an exciting brand of football at Chesapeake as well.
Right. Well, I was talking to Rob about this, and he said one of the things he thinks is key is that they are not wedded to any particular offensive style. They have built the offense around the talent available. And last year they had 2 good, strong running backs, so they tended to run the ball more. This year, the person they had penciled in to be the starting tailback got injured in preseason. Dylan Young is a very talented quarterback. They've got 2 good receivers in Russell Tongue Jr. and Colton Spangler. So they're throwing the ball a little more. And they've been very efficient. I think Coach...
He's already over 1,000 yards passing for the year.
And Coach Elliott said he's got 10 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. So he's managing the game well. He's a guy that's in line to be considered for all-county quarterback, I think. He's done a really good job. But Coach Elliott said that really the true story of this team so far has been the defense. First-string defense has only given up 2 touchdowns in 5 games.
That's pretty impressive. It's how you win a lot of football games. And again, the big play, Tongue was 70 yards and 79 yards through the air from Young. And that's the thing that really had always been missing from Chesapeake High School football. There was no explosive plays. Yeah. Now they're starting to get that, and they remain undefeated.
Right. And we have talked about this before on the show, but Russell Tongue Sr. was an outstanding athlete, football and basketball at South River High. We remember Russell.
Former number 5 for the Seahawks.
Yeah. And, I asked Coach Elliott if he thought the son was a Division I prospect. He said he's definitely a collegiate prospect, but he's a little slight. But if he could get a little thicker, he definitely has a chance. So, it'd be interesting to see if he moves on to the next level.
Broadneck, of course, in the battle of unbeatens with Northeast, and Broadneck really had their way here. Josh Ehrlich, 16 of 18 for 189.
Outstanding.
Yeah, 48-6. The Northeast running game got shut down. It's been so good so far this year for the Eagles, but Broadneck probably a little bit deeper, probably a little bit further along in terms of they're all 22 right now than Northeast is. And obviously now for Northeast, Kilby had to bounce back from this, not to get frustrated from it because you've played good football. You just happened to run into the best team in the county last week.
Right, exactly. Well, in Northeast, as you've said in previous shows, that they were able to massage their schedule a little bit and get some teams on there that were more akin to what they could play with. And now they're stepping up and playing some of the 4As in the county, and Broadneck's a tough nut. We should mention Ethan Williams, the outstanding Broadneck receiver, broke the Anne Arundel County record for career receiving yards last week. He broke the record that was held by R.J. Harris, former Arundel standout, went to Maine and had a great college career. So congratulations, Ethan.
South River with a big win. They knock off Severna Park by a count of 23-14. And how many times, Bill, do you see it? A team allows a special teams touchdown.
Yeah.
We see it in the college and pro level. It often fights back and it becomes a huge play for South River to get separation from Severna Park. They win it by a score of 23-14. Big win for South River because that 4 spot right now in that Class 4A East region, that thing is really up for grabs. And
Sure
7-3, believe it or not, 7-3 might actually get that spot. It's a rare time in Anne Arundel County that happens, but 7-3 may get you the 4 spot right now.
Right, when it's getting hard to figure out this county because South River had suffered a loss to Arundel that they didn't look so good, and
Got popped by Annapolis too.
Right, and then Severna Park had upset Old Mill last week. So I'm doing the prediction corner, and I see Severna Park beating Old Mill, and I think, oh well, and South River's just lost 2 in a row. I'm going Severna Park, and so you can't figure this season out so far, and a lot of it has to do with matchups. But when South River runs the ball, that's when they're at their best. And I think in both the Annapolis and the Arundel games, they weren't able to get the running game going, but they sure did against Severna Park. And maybe Severna Park had a little letdown after the big win over Old Mill.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, again, in close games, I don't think there's a lot separating a lot of these teams, quite frankly, to be honest with you there. Arundel, no problem with Glen Burnie winning 61-14. Austin Sly, 158 yards, 3 scores. The Wildcats improved to 4-1 in the game, and I think that's the key right now, to watch that loss column. Teams that are sitting there at 1 and 2 are going to be in great shape, as we get further and further along, since we're halfway through the regular season right now. Old Mill beat North County by a score of 49-29. Southern loses on the road to Easton. And also in the private ranks, Severn with a nice win over Concordia Prep, 22-18.
Concordia Prep had laid it on the Annapolis Area Christian School. Annapolis Area Christian School had beaten Severn in the season opener. That's another one I got wrong in the prediction corner because Concordia Prep was unbeaten. That's a really good win for Severn. I think Craig Stevens threw a couple touchdown passes in that one.
Yep, and Henry Rentz scored one on the ground for the winners as well. AACS got another big game from our man Sam Akinumukami as they knock off St. John's College Prep 23-13.
223 yards, I believe, for Big Sam I am.
Big one, 22 carries, and he had 3 touchdowns. He also had 17 tackles as a middle linebacker.
Right. Well, I don't recall him playing defense before. So
not to this level.
No, that's impressive.
Indeed. Jay Numbarger, by the way, started the year quarterback for Spalding. He's now a running back. It's working out pretty good there.
He's putting up some big numbers.
He got a touchdown catch from Austin Tudis, who took over at the quarterback position and went 12 of 21 in the game. And Jay Numbarger, a guy that's showing you his versatility right now, because as he projects to the college level, you never know. I mean, could play quarterback, could play running back, could do any number of things with the athletic ability that he's showing right now for Spalding.
All right, well, he's a Naval Academy commit, and we were wondering, maybe just speculating off air as to whether maybe he found out from Navy that he's more likely to be a slot back, and so therefore Spalding switched him, or maybe they just thought, hey, we got another good quarterback, and Jaden is more valuable as a runner. So either way, early in the season they made a switch, and Umbarger's now running the ball. That's a big win for Spalding in that MIAA conference.
Impressive on the ground, as Umbarger had 125 yards, and also Jayon Venerable finished with 98 yards on 24 carries in the game. So
Kyle
again,
Smith's crew running the ball.
Yes, sir. Run the ball, play it safe, run the ball. If you run the ball effectively and your offensive line plays well, you're going to do extremely well. And that's what happened for Spalding in a big win over McDonough. When we come back, take a look at the colleges and the pros as the Ravens get a big win over the Steelers. Talk about that when we come back on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back. Time to take a look at the colleges and the pros. Obviously, for Bill and I, a bye week last week with no Navy in action. They are on the road at Air Force. First leg of the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy. And for Maryland, who bounced back with a huge win over Minnesota. Bye week to rest up. And, here comes Michigan.
Michigan's looked a little vulnerable. I mean, they're not exactly setting the world on fire and pounding people.
Not offensively, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, they're defensive-oriented, low-scoring. I mean, I think they had to rally this past week to
beat Northwestern. They were down 17-7.
Right, so, that could be winnable. This big game for Navy. And, this game has often been foretold how Navy's season going to go. If they can beat Air Force, there's a lot of times they go on to a great success. A loss can sometimes mean a more mediocre season, but neither of these teams have really set the world afire either on the collegiate level, and it'll be interesting to see. Air Force, I think, has lost 5 of their last 6 games dating back to last season. Kind of been struggling. They've been falling behind big and then rallying. Their games have ended close, as you mentioned. But
kind of like the game in Annapolis last year between the two.
That's right. Right. So, again, Navy's got some things to fix. We talked about the offense just doesn't seem to be clicking the way that we have seen in the past. They're relying on big plays, explosive plays, but they're not really moving the ball with consistency the way we've seen in years past. So it'll be interesting to see which team can pull it together in this huge Service Academy showdown.
Meanwhile, on the pros side, Redskins rough. They'll play the Saints coming up next week. Saints easy winners over the Giants this past week, 33-18. The Ravens, all they do is win, man. And look, I don't care what you people say. Continuity means everything. And while there have been people that have wanted to parachute John Harbaugh at times as the coach of the Ravens, you're stupid, really. Not good, because continuity means a lot. And I think John Harbaugh is an outstanding leader. I think he's an outstanding guy from getting everybody on the same page, going in the right direction. Not only that, they actually got Joe Flacco some wide receivers. And as I said on Twitter this week, I think John Brown may be the most undervalued but most productive off-season signing in pro football because of the lift he's given the Ravens, big plays on the offense, something that they could not get in the past.
Right. Well, that to me is the big difference. Everybody was, ripping on Marty Mornhinweg last year and saying it was uninventive. Well, get Joe Flacco some playmakers. The other thing is Joe Flacco clearly was hurt last year. He was not 100%. And this year,
anytime you come back from traumatic knee injury like that first year is
and
really
he had the
struggle.
back issue. He didn't do training camp. This year he looks so much better. He's moving better. He's rolling out of the pocket sometimes. He's able to scramble a little bit. But he's got playmakers. He's healthy, and it looks like an entirely different offense.
No doubt about it, which means you get Alex Collins and, our man Buck, Buck Allen, first name Javorius, for those of you that keep track at home. They don't have to be great on the ground. They just have to be reasonably effective. Right. And I think the Ravens' offensive line is also playing much better. But you know what, Bill? It all comes down defense. Their defense has been smothering in the second half. Nobody's scoring on them in the second half of these games.
Steelers did nothing in that game in the second half. It was almost stunning to see because you are so accustomed.
It's a high-octane offense, man.
Especially at home, you're so accustomed to Ben Roethlisberger leading a comeback, kept waiting for it, and when it didn't happen, you're like, wow, this is unbelievable. The Ravens just kept shutting them down and forcing them to punt.
Well, he kept throwing it into windows that didn't exist either. So Ravens defenders, I'll tell you what, Baltimore secondary may be the best in the league or has performed.
That's quite the statement.
Look, they have not had Jimmy Smith for these 4 games, and they have played perhaps as the best secondary in the National Football League through the first 4 games of the season. I think
they get Jimmy Smith back next week, supposedly.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see what happens to Brandon Carr, who played an incredible game against the Steelers.
I'd make Jimmy Smith a nickelback or something for right now. I would not disrupt what I got going on in the chemistry in that secondary with the Ravens. No doubt about that with the way they've played here in recent weeks. That'll do it for us. As always, we appreciate you joining us each and every week. Appreciate all the folks out there who hustle down some highlights for us. If you have any, be glad to have those as well. You can send them to us here at the Gridiron Review. For all of us here, we'll see you next week on the Gridiron Review.